into another masterclass brought to you by the Winners Club. I truly appreciate your time and attention this evening. I'm very excited about today's masterclass. Sales is something that is not comfortable for a lot of people, but is absolutely necessary for you in your business or in any, really aspect profession of your life. You have to be able to sell and bring people into the fold to continue to grow. And so having a relational lens is going to be very fun to learn about. So it's some new people on the call on the master class that we have not had in previous master classes. So I want to take an opportunity to share a little bit about the Winners Club with you. The Winners Club is a company that I own. My name is Christina Wynn. It's a really cool play on names, right? And so it's a business development consulting company. We offer three main services. We do business coaching. We offer access to capital through grant writing and loan preparation, and we do business education. So the master class that you are attending is part of our business education offering, and it is our way to give back to entrepreneurs and business owners in a way that I believe is impactful. Education is very important. And I want to let you all know that we actually have an online course as well, which begins March 6th. We are doing an open house on the 25th, which is Thursday at 6 p.m. So if you need a business coach, if you need a business plan or a pitch deck, if you need access to business professionals like business lawyers, accountants, marketing specialists, and even a business banker. And if you want to master your 30-second elevator pitch, I encourage you to join the open house. The link for that event is going to be in the description of this video. So if you're interested, definitely take a look at that. Finally, I want to let you all know I'm also a business advisor with the Illinois Small Business Development Centers. I don't know if I've ever actually said that on one of these master classes, but I should. So if you all need no cost business advising, I encourage you to take advantage of the SBDC. We offer all of the services to business owners and entrepreneurs at no cost. So that link is also in the description bar if you need business advising. So that is enough about me. Okay, you guys, it is time for you to get your shine. And I am going to go ahead and just go in the order of my screen and allow you all to introduce yourselves. So first is Bruce, you're up.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Bruce Phillips. I work with Cassandra over here, and my specialty I'm an actor and improviser in Chicago, and I help folks do role play scenario work to sort of practice business skills. And I work with CSZ Business and Second City Theatricals and a lot of other different places around Chicago. And something that's not about that on my resume that's not that you wouldn't find about me. It's not on my resume. Is I'm an avid juggler. I have taken a fair number of circus arts work, and I can unicycle and juggle. That is my fun
That
fact.
is cool. That's so good. That's really good. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, next we're going to go to George.
Okay, I'm off mute, so I see the yellow box lit up, so I guess you guys can hear me. Yeah, my name is George Peterson. I was really intrigued by the topic to be able to participate tonight. I've been in sales for over 30 years, but I'm on the corporate side, Cassandra. So, not the entrepreneur, but the corporate person. And I might be the kind of person that they described in the overview of the quintessential salesperson that everybody runs away from, okay? But on the other hand, Christina, you set it up well by saying that, you do need good salespeople, right? You need those skills and things of that nature. So that would be my forte. As a matter of fact, one of my fun facts. So right now I'm an area sales manager for HD Supply. So that's a huge Fortune 500 company. Most of my career has been with those kinds of companies as a sales leader. As a matter of fact, that's my fun fact, is that I worked at Eli Lilly and Company for 17 years back in the day. And I was a field salesperson, and I was one of the original salespersons that launched the drug Prozac. So I am sure that some of you have heard of Prozac, that antidepressant that revolutionized the treatment of depression. See, I still got the pitch. All right, still got the pitch. But that is my thing. Another fun fact would be that Cassandra's last name is my oldest son's first name, Quinn. So with that, let me sign off, and I'm looking forward to the presentation tonight. Thank you.
That was great, George. Thank you for sharing that. And what is the likelihood? Quinn is not like a really common name, you know? So that's really interesting. Okay, so next we're going to go to Victoria.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Victoria. I am the president and CEO of Naturally Urban Environmental Incorporated, a sustainable real estate development and environmental consulting firm. What is something interesting about me? I knit like an old baby. Yeah, so that's something fun and exciting about me, I guess.
Thank you for sharing. Did you knit your sweater? No, you're not that good.
I'm working on hats.
Are you a professional or just as
amateur? I just get my Loctite like right and can do a straight line.
So we're doing blankets still. We're blankets.
Blankets and infinity sweaters. That's it.
I love it. Thank you for sharing, Victoria. And next we'll go to Tracy.
Hi, I am the owner of a retail franchise called Big Frog Custom T-Shirts and More, and we sell custom printed apparel, promotional items, and novelty items. Nice. Fun fact for me is that I took a trip to Costa Rica and a monkey jumped on my back that had a monkey on its back.
That's funny. I love it. That's really good. Did they get a picture of that?
Yes.
They did. Oh, we might have to pull that up. I love it.
Okay.
That's pretty funny. Thank you for sharing, Tracy.
Welcome.
Next, we will go to Archana.
Good evening. My name is Archana Liggins, and I wear several hats. I guess the one that I have on today, right now, is that I am the CEO and founder of a nonprofit that I founded named Bag Lady Outreach. Bag Lady Outreach, pre-COVID, collected gently used bags and purses, filled them up with toiletry items, and served to families in need. During COVID, what I've done is change what that bag has looked like to be more of a unisex bag to include toiletry items and PPE for families in need. And so that's what I do in the evenings. During the day, I work for Northern Illinois Food Bank, and I serve Will, Grundy, and Kankakee counties. So any food pantry, soup kitchen, or group home, I essentially work with in those counties. And so that's actually how Bag Lady Outreach kind of came about, because it was for my 38th birthday. I wanted to give out 38 blessing bags. And just last year, I gave out 14,000. And so it's been a pretty big deal. And I'm really grateful for the whole experience. I guess a couple of fun facts about me is that I am the remarkable woman for Chicago. I am the remarkable woman for Next Star for the country. And I was recently highlighted on the Kelly Clarkson show for all of the work that I do. So I haven't added those items to my resume because I just don't know where they would go. But all of those titles I actually wear, besides being a mom, a wife, a dog mom, and friend and sister, and all of the other good stuff. And actually everybody is involved with Bag Lady Outreach. And so I'm really grateful. This coming Saturday is my 2-year anniversary of Bag Lady Outreach being incorporated. And we have done so much work in the community, and it's just been a really awesome ride.
That is so good.
Man, she's a celebrity. Like
celebrity status tonight. I know that's right. That is awesome. Awesome. So inspirational. Thank you for sharing. And Saida, is your audio working? Maybe not. Okay. Well, if we can get it to work I do want you to do an introduction so Cassandra and everyone else can know a little bit more about you and your business. But Cassandra, we'll pass it to you to give your introduction and then we'll go into your masterclass.
Fantastic. Thank you, Christina. I'm Cassandra Quinn, and I am a communications and sales coach. And a fun fact about me that you would not find on my resume is that I have a crush on Abraham Lincoln. So much so that I saw an impersonator that looked so much like him that I fangirled and I couldn't even talk to him. Like that, it's that serious. So that was a really long time ago. That was probably like 6 or 7. And I guess it's not that long ago, but yeah, it's been a while. But yes, that happened to me. I got so fangirled and embarrassed about an Abraham Lincoln impersonator that I couldn't even talk to him. So there you go.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. And yeah, I will jump right into my presentation. So thank you so much for having me, Christina. I am delighted and excited to be sharing with all of you. It's nice to see some familiar faces here as well as to meet some new folks. And I am delighted that you took time out on your Monday night and to spend it with me and to learn. And I just wanting to honor and recognize the fact that Christina creates this space every week for entrepreneurs and business leaders. So thank you, Christina. And as we jump in, I know that the folks who are in the room with me are aware of what we're talking about, but some of maybe the friends outside the container may not be as aware of what we're talking about tonight. So just as a quick overview, we're here to talk about how to harness your humanity to cultivate success, and that's through the lens of authentic relationship-focused sales. So going into it, I want to jump in right with a big statistic, 90%. That percentage represents the number of potential clients who won't buy unless directly asked for the sale, even when they're ready to buy. So I want that to sink in for a moment, okay? The number of potential clients who won't buy unless directly asked for the sale, even when they're ready to buy. That means that 90% of the people who are excited and interested and ready to give you their money are unlikely to do it unless you directly ask for the sale, okay? And I want to unpack that a little bit and talk about why some of that is going on. Part of that is that people just don't like to initiate. People are uncomfortable with initiation. And so we as business owners and as business leaders and as salespeople have to have the larger responsibility of overcoming that discomfort of initiation. But I also want to talk a little bit about this because I sometimes hear people go, well, that's not me. Like I'm in that 10% that like, I know when I'm ready to buy, I'll just step up and buy, right? But let me just give you this example to kind of challenge that belief, maybe that if you're having that about yourself. And I want you to imagine being at a restaurant, okay? Let's say pre-COVID. And in that pre-COVID restaurant, I want you to imagine you have your menu and you know what you want to eat. The waiter walks up to the table and you're ready to order. Do you just start rattling off your order or do you wait for them to ask you what you want? Most of the time, you're going to wait for them to ask you what you want, right? Even though you know what you want and you're ready to order, because we feel like it's presumptuous. We feel like it might be rude. We don't want to ask for what we want or what we need or what we're interested in buying until we know that person is ready to serve us, ready to take care of us, ready to take our order, right? And so if that is true in a really transactional situation where the roles are really clean cut and clear, right? Don't you imagine that in situations where the roles are not so clean cut and clear about this is how this interaction goes, people are going to be even more hesitant to speak up and initiate buying, right? And so to go along with that too, I also want to talk about trust while we're talking about asking for the business. And the reason I bring up trust at this point is because trust is 2 parts. The first part to trust is competency. Is this person able to to help me? Are they capable of it, right? And so as business owners, as salespeople, it's our job to build competency, right? To build that part of trust, to demonstrate that we're able, we have the skill set, the expertise, the ability to help people, right? But the second part of trust is willingness. Does this person want to help me? Okay. And if we spend all of this time building our competency and demonstrating our competency, yes, I'm able to, and then we don't do the second part, which is show directly our willingness to help people, then we're actually breaking trust. And it's not something that people are like consciously thinking about. It's not that they feel, oh my goodness, this person has slighted me. It's a subconscious thing that's going on that we don't even realize, that when we're not offering the service or not asking for the sale, that we're not demonstrating in a very clear way that we're willing to help somebody. Does that make sense? So I see that there's some things coming in the chat. I'm not able to look at that right now. So if it's something that is like super important that I see, Christina, I ask for you to let me know. Thank you so much. But we're going to keep going from there. So as we have our time together tonight, we're going to come back and revisit this number in a couple of different ways. But for now, I want to move on and just share that who I recognize the people in the room to be. And I know that we just did introduction, so I got to know you even a little better. And something that I recognize is a lot of you are mission-driven business owners. You're people who care about making a difference in the world, or you're business leaders. You are dedicated to making a difference and helping people in the world because you care about them. That's why you got into your business in the first place, right? And then from there, I recognize that you're a committed kind of person. You're committed to gaining confidence, skills, perspective, understanding. Otherwise, you wouldn't be setting aside a couple of hours of your Monday night to come to a masterclass, right? So I recognize that you're a committed kind of person to gaining. And then also overcoming fear, discomfort, difficulties that you might feel around selling or asking for the sale or growing your business through sales. And then also becoming. You're committed to becoming the best version of yourself within your business and your life. And so I just want to celebrate that that's who has come together to be with me tonight. So thank you. And now that I've boldly stated who I think that you are to be in the room, I'll tell you a little bit about who I am. So as I mentioned before, I'm Cassandra Quinn. I'm an educator and a communication and sales coach. And for me, I focus on teaching people to be phenomenal communicators and relationship builders so that success can naturally flow to them. And what I mean by that is I believe that anything that you're wanting to accomplish in your life, whether it's in your business, in your personal life, in your vision for the world, all is rooted in communication and relationship building. So that's what I mean by the success flowing from that. And even more simply put, I just feel that I have been put on this planet to help people connect better. I understand that connection is something that we all deeply crave and desire, but often feel lost how to successfully do that. And so I believe I'm here to help close the gap between people and help them connect. And then a little bit about my background. I have a bachelor's degree in theater performance, as well as a bachelor's degree in sociology. So I like to say that it's just two different versions of the study of people. And so I have 2 degrees in studying people. And then 12 years of experience as an educator, a theater practitioner, an entrepreneur, and a communications coach. And a little bit of drilling down. I have a lot of different ways that has shown up in my life, and I've done that work professionally, but a couple of specific ways I want to share with you is that for the last 8 years, I have owned and operated Compass Creative Dramatics. I'm one of the co-founders, and it is a traveling children's theater based here in Chicago. And then I've also, for the last 6 years, been a practical instructor and communication coach for the University of Chicago Pritzker School of Medicine. And what that means is that I have the privilege of working with their medical students, teaching them to be more empathetic and effective communicators with their patients. And then a little bit more about my background and experience, because I think some of you all have come to this world and to this container specifically through your connection to the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program. That's how I know Christina. So I just wanted to connect the dots to show that I am a part of that community too, and that I graduated spring 2019, Chicago cohort 23. So that's a little bit about me. As Bruce mentioned in his introduction, he works with me and he's actually here to help me with this masterclass. So just a little bit more about him and his background. He's also an educator, an improviser, and a communication trainer. He also has a bachelor's in theater as well as a bachelor's in secondary education. 15 years experience as an educator, a theater practitioner, a director, and an actor. So you can see where our paths have been similar, but also some places where they've diverged. And then a little bit more about the specificity of that. 10 years as a director for the Royal Caribbean International. 8 years as a corporate communications trainer for CSC Business Chicago and Second City Theatricals, as well as 2 years as the marketing director of Comedy Sports Theater Chicago. So it's a nice balance of having both of us who have this background in communication, as well as both sides of the coin with sales and marketing. So that's a little bit about the two of us. And why are we here? What are Bruce and I going to be working on with you tonight? Well, what we're going to be exploring is, why do we struggle with sales? Okay. And so I believe that this question, the struggle, is rooted in the fact that our culture has a sordid history with salespeople. So a lot of times when we think of salespeople, we think of guys like this. And guys like this door-to-door salesman, you might recognize if you're familiar with the Music Man, that's Professor Harold Hill, door-to-door salesman. And then also, when we think of these types of characters, we have these stereotypical ideas that come to mind. Pushy, self-serving, slick, sleazy is another word that I hear a lot connected to sales, which just breaks my heart because it doesn't have to be that way. But a lot of us have experienced sales in these ways, and then at worst, dishonest, right? So we're fighting against this sordid history that we have with salespeople and our ideas of salespeople. Now, from there though, we don't want to be that, right? Of course not. So we distance ourselves, and they tell us, just serve, just build relationships, just give, right? If those are things that you have heard before, say yep in the chat. If that is true of you, I want you to say yep. Or if you're tuning in on the outside, go ahead and put that in the comments right now. But the problem with that is, when we don't have the correct foundations for serving, relationship building, and giving, then it gets out of balance. So I do believe those things are true, but when we don't have the correct foundations to build it on, we end up feeling overwhelmed. We end up feeling lost. We end up feeling stressed. We end up over giving, over serving, like this woman with her arms loaded up with packages. We just end up over giving and extending ourselves. And ultimately, we end up burned out, right? Because we've overgiven, we've over delivered. And here's the truth. The truth is, you can significantly increase your revenue and stop being pulled in so many directions by your business without ever being salesy. However, what people often do is that they chase after all of the tools, right? They go to class after class and go after program and just keep collecting tools for their toolbox. And I want to tell you right now, don't just keep adding tools to your toolbox. It doesn't mean that those tools aren't valuable, but if all you do is go chase tools and add them to your toolbox, then you're going to end up with a junk drawer full of tools that you don't know how to use or how to utilize, because you haven't been taught how to use them and how to hone those in a way that's going to be effective for your business. So most training programs talk about this linchpin to success, but fail to help you develop the necessary skills, which make people slip back into old habits that cause sales to suffer. And this linchpin that all of these programs talk about, but I think that they fail to really help people fully develop and deliver on, is practice. Right? We hear it all the time. No matter where we go, no matter what programs we're enrolled in, they say practice, 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 right? And that call to practice comes in a lot of different forms. Sometimes it's go practice in your business. The best way to get good at it is to just go implement it in your business. But the problem is when you've just intellectually learned how to do something or learned about something that might be effective in your business, you haven't embodied it yet. And so when you go into your business, it's really difficult because you haven't honed those skills in a way that makes you feel confident and frankly, that allows you to be good at using that tool, right? And so you hesitate or you slip back into ways that you usually do things because you feel uncomfortable even trying it, or you try it out and it doesn't work out so well because you didn't have space to practice it and hone the skills, right? So that's one way that practice shows up a lot of times in sales programs, as they teach you and then they say, go baby bird, push you out of the nest, go practice in your business, right? Another way it shows up is that they say, go practice with family, go practice with your mom, go practice with your cousin, go practice with your neighbor, right? And that's great. That can be helpful, just like practicing in your business is helpful. It does teach us things. We do learn from it, but there's a disconnect that happens. And then another way that it shows up is people saying, go practice with colleagues because they at least understand your business better, right? So that's a good way to practice. But the difference between practicing with your colleagues or practicing with family is that you don't have the best environment in which to best support your growth. I am never going to put down practice. All of those ways to practice are useful and good and will help you learn and grow. However, I think the best solution is practice in a professional environment with trained coaching. It's the fastest, most effective, efficient, and nurturing way to grow. And the reason for that is as much as your mom or your cousin or your partner or your daughter or whoever you're practicing with is eager and willing to help you, they aren't trained in the areas that you're looking to try to grow. So they're only going to be able to be so effective with their feedback, right? And then the other part of that is that they are also wearing two hats really in that moment where they're practicing or role playing or simulating with you, which is really difficult to do, especially when you haven't been trained how to wear both those hats at the same time. So they're trying to be present with you as your potential practice customer, prospect, client, whatever. And they're also trying to have a critical eye on like what's working, what's not, giving you feedback, right? And so it's difficult to kind of be keeping an eye on both of those things. So it's important to work with people who've been trained to wear both hats or have an outside trainer who's watching the simulation to give you feedback. And then also furthermore from that is understanding that your family, ooh, I lost the thought. Come back to me, thought. Why we practice.
Happens to me all the time.
Thanks, Christina. Well, it'll come back to me. And if it doesn't, it was probably not that important anyway. But just understanding that, again, I'm not disparaging any type of practice that people do. I'm just saying that I think that oftentimes when you're able to be in an intentional, purposeful environment where you're getting feedback from people who are trained to give you that feedback, then you are going to be able to have the most effective, fastest, and nurturing way to grow and develop those skills. And so, because that is like a cornerstone of my belief in coaching and training, we are going to create space for you to practice some of the things that we are going to do tonight so that you can get some of that intentional practice and coaching. So just be aware of that. Another reason that practice is so important is it is actually the last step in being able to be the most successful that you can possibly be. We spend so much time in learning mode, training mode, instruction mode, and we're going to be doing a lot of that tonight too, but also realize that when you skip that final step of practice, it is much more difficult to get to the level of success that you might be looking and striving to be at. So that's a little bit about why I think practice is important, but I'm going to go into that even a little further. Why I think practice matters is it gives you an opportunity to move what you've been working on from conscious competency, like something I'm aware of, I understand it, I get it, but I'm having to focus really hard on it, to being unconsciously competent, where you don't even have to think about it. It's just something that you're now embodying, right? That's something I mentioned earlier. And an example of this is Bruce and I recently had the privilege of being able to teach a short 4-week group coaching class where we were helping people develop communication skills. It wasn't around the topic of sales, but instead was around difficult or important conversations, giving feedback. And during that time, people had an opportunity to simulate and practice conversations that they wanted to have. And we had a particular student or participant rather, who was with us for that time. And she had wanted to grow in a lot of different areas of communication within her life, within her business, within her professional life, and then also her personal life. And we practiced out what those conversations could look like with our mind's eye and gave her some feedback. And then I'm so excited to tell you that just this week, we got an email from her that says this: the real life conversation was such a positive interaction, and I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. I appreciated your insight into the simulated conversations, and I really thank you both for everything, Amy. And she also went on to say that the conversation didn't look anything like what we had practiced. She actually ran into the person that she wanted to talk to at the grocery store and had an organic conversation there. But because she had been thoughtful and intentional about preparing for that conversation and practicing, she felt confident and comfortable to know what to say in that moment, even though it didn't play out the way that she had imagined it to. It still had the outcomes that she had been hoping for. So that's another big reason why practice matters. And then I want to kind of shift gears out of practice and say, even though when we're practicing, there are some things that get in the way of us being able to be the most successful that we can be. We end up running into some roadblocks. And those roadblocks end up being your own beliefs. Your own beliefs get in the way and stop you before you ever get started. And what I mean by that is sometimes we have certain ideas around business, around money, around wealth, around sales or selling that we bring in with us into our conversations, into our sales conversations that actually get in the way of our success. And when I had been preparing to talk to people about this and about my experience around selling, I at one point had said, I just don't know, because I feel like I've always been good at sales. I've always felt really comfortable selling, and it's really maybe just with high ticket things that I get a little, I previously, I don't now, but I would get uncomfortable or not feel as confident in. But then I had this aha moment. I went, oh my gosh, actually, there was a moment when I was younger. I used to be a Girl Scout. So that's another fun fact about me. And so, with Girl Scouts, the territory comes with Girl Scout cookies, right? And I remember I was really good at selling Girl Scout cookies as a kid. However, I also had recently this memory of my mom when I started selling Girl Scout cookies for the first time, when I was a kid, telling me, oh, well, I mean, that's great. And it's totally fine for you to do that. But just remember that Girl Scout cookies are a lot more expensive than they used to be. And it's a lot of money to ask people to pay for cookies. So my mom taught me a good lesson to be mindful of the type of money that people might have, be respectful of that. But also unintentionally, I also learned the lesson of being self-conscious and second guessing, pricing and feeling maybe a little embarrassment or a little apologetic about asking people to pay for things. And I certainly don't think that was my mother's intention, but that was an opportunity where I had learned this thing or carried on this belief from that moment. And that happens to a lot of us. We're carrying along these beliefs that we aren't maybe even consciously aware of. And so here's the thing. The new improved sales mindset tells us just think differently, right? Or be a consultant, or focus on serving, right? How many of you, a lot of you all have your cameras off, so I can't see you. So go ahead, and I'm going to open the chat so I can see it. How many of you have heard those things, right? So focus on serving, be a consultant, just think differently, say yeah, or I have, or something, let me know. Me, thank you. And realizing that those are things that we constantly hear to be better at sales. We don't want to be the pushy car salesman, right? And so instead, we have these new ideas layered on. Just think differently, be a consultant, focus on serving. And that's true. But again, that's usually treating the discomfort, the sales discomfort symptoms, and that can work for a while. But just like when you have a cold, and let's say you have a cough and sneezing, and you take cold medicine, that treats the symptoms for a while, but does it last forever? Of course not, it wears off. And in fact, you can kind of still feel the discomfort, right? A lot of times when we take cold medicine, we can still feel that we're not quite right, but like something is like mitigating the symptoms a bit, right? And so realizing that, however, subconsciously, we're still fighting against our own deeper limiting beliefs. And so I don't know if limiting beliefs are something that is familiar term to you all or is new. For those that it might not be as familiar to you, I just share that limiting beliefs is just something that might be getting in our way of being able to be our most empowered selves, or be able to be the most successful because we have something holding us back in our belief system, like I was sharing with my Girl Scout story. And so realizing that that is something that can come up for people. And so, there we go. Our baggage, that's another way I think about it. We have these limiting beliefs, or our baggage, and it gets in our way about money, about sales, about our business, and about ourselves. And so I want to point out some common limiting beliefs that people have about money and wealth. And the reason I do this is because sometimes it's hard to be consciously aware of these things if we just sat here and thought, well, what do I believe about these things that might be limiting beliefs? And so I think that working from a list can sometimes be helpful. But I also point it out because these are common. Lots of people have these. So if you have felt any of these before, it's normal. It's something that comes up for a lot of people, so much so that it ended up on my list, right? So I wanted you to realize that you're not alone. So some common limiting beliefs about money and wealth. Money is hard to make. It's greedy or selfish to want a lot of money. If I want to help people, I shouldn't be worried about the money. This is a really common one, especially for mission-driven entrepreneurs. If this is true of you, say, yep, that's me in the chat, or some variation of that. If you've ever felt this way, just because I know that this is a common one that comes up. I see Christina came on and raised her hand. Yeah, because we care about helping people. Yes, we're mission-driven. And so because that's true, we think that there's this disconnect. If I want to help people, I shouldn't be worried about the money. It's a very common limiting belief that mission-driven entrepreneurs have, or just people who care about helping others, even if they aren't entrepreneurs. Another one is wealthy people are jerks, right? Or some variation of negative thoughts about wealthy people. Money corrupts people. So here's the thing about limiting beliefs. Our brains, the jobs of our brains is to protect ourselves. Our brains are literally there in some fashion to make sure that we don't fall harm to danger, right? And if that's the case, and we believe these things, our brain is actively working against us experiencing these things because our brains want to protect us. Certainly, we don't want to be corrupt. We don't want to be a jerk. We don't want to be perceived as greedy or selfish, right? And so what happens is if you are carrying these beliefs with you into a sales situation, there's going to be dissonance. Your brain, even if it's subconscious, even if you're not aware that it's happening, is in dissonance with what you are trying to do. Okay. And so I want to carry that over from common limiting beliefs about money and wealth into common limiting beliefs about sales and selling. So some common ones here are, I'm not a natural salesperson. Asking for the sale is pushy. Selling is hard. Selling is manipulative. And if I build it well enough, they will come and initiate buying from me. That is a common one that I hear a lot. I don't want to worry about selling. I just want to focus on my business and making it as good as it possibly can be. And if it's good enough, if I build it well enough, people will just come to me and they'll just buy from me. But let me point back to that statistic I opened with. 90% of people, no matter how well you have done building your business, and even when they're ready to buy from you, will not initiate buying from you. So that statistic is proof that this limiting belief is not true, okay? And so I want everyone to take a moment, and I'm going to leave this list up and then I'll flip back to the other one. And I want you to think about which one of these feels most resonant with you, feels most true, like something that you think that you maybe carry right now with you. I'm not a natural salesperson. Asking for the sale is pushy. Selling is hard. Selling is manipulative. If I build it, they will come. I'll flip back to our other slide too. Money is hard to make. It's greedy or selfish to want a lot of money. If I want to help people, I shouldn't be worried about the money. Wealthy people are jerks. Money corrupts people. Or anything that came to mind that maybe isn't on my list, but you recognize might fall into this category of limiting beliefs. I want you to take a moment, think about it, and then add whatever it is that you're feeling or thinking to the chat, or if you're outside of the Zoom container and you're watching in on YouTube or on Facebook, go ahead and add that into the comments. I'll give people a moment because we're going to do something with some of these. So if it's good enough, people, they will buy it. Thank you, Christina. Give everybody else a moment. The perception of being pushy. Yep. I'm going to go ahead and flip us back. If I want to help people, I shouldn't be worried about the money. Here's one from Saida that's a little bit different than what I have. I sometimes care about people's vision and I'm a counselor and spend time building rapport to understand their plight. Okay, well, I think that building rapport is definitely a valuable thing in sales, and acting as a consultant or a counselor can be beneficial. But yes, when we get too stuck in that mode, it can get in the way of us being able to sell effectively. Yeah, and like being concerned about what people can afford, definitely. So from these common limiting beliefs, I'm going to ask a question, but it's a rhetorical one. I'm going to tell you what I feel. Do you control your decisions? And my belief is yes, we do. We control our decisions. Now, of course, there are exceptions to that where we may feel like things are outside of our control, that our hands are kind of tied or forced. But generally speaking, what I'm going to eat today, what I'm going to wear today, what I'm going to spend my money on, what I'm going to spend my time on, I get to make those decisions, right? Now, the next idea I want to introduce to this, if we are able to control our decisions, yes. The next step in that is the idea that beliefs are decisions. Now, again, I don't know where you are on your journey in exploring limiting beliefs, so this might be brand new idea to you. This might be old hat. You may have heard this before, but it can't hurt to review it. Repetition is always valuable. And so exploring the idea that beliefs are decisions, okay? And if beliefs are decisions and we have control over our decisions, then we have control over these limiting beliefs, okay? And what that looks like is realizing that our brains are able to be taking in everything around us, but we're only becoming consciously aware of what's around us at about 8%. So we're only becoming consciously aware of 8% of what's going on. How does our brain decide what to make us consciously aware of? Because there's, 92% of the world going on around us that we're never consciously aware of. So how does our brain tell us what's going on? How do we become consciously aware? It's based on our experiences and our beliefs and decisions. And so those things are going to show up for us. If we believe these things, that's what's going to show up when we are looking for our conscious awareness, when our brain is tuning in and looking around. So what I want to do is this exercise is I want us to take a moment and explore the idea of being able to make a new empowered decision. And so because beliefs are decisions and we know that we can control our decisions, and it might seem a little woo-woo for some people. I realize that this idea that we can just change our opinions or we can just change our beliefs, but just go with me on this, okay? Go on this journey and see if you can take either the one that you shared in the chat or one from the list and see if you can reframe that in a way that would make you feel better if it were true, okay? Think of a new way to frame that. So it might be something like, instead of selling is hard, maybe you can flip all the way to selling is easy. I will acknowledge that I think that kind of jump can feel false and feel forced, right? Just to be like, all right, now I'm going to believe selling is easy. Okay, it's hard to get our brains enrolled or on board for that kind of big switch. But if we say maybe selling is helpful, could we maybe get on board with that? And would that not already make it feel more comfortable and more empowered to be having a conversation if we believe that selling is helpful rather than selling is hard or selling is pushy? So I'm going to scroll through what people shared and I want to take a look. I think I'm going to call in George. George, would you mind if I asked you to come join me and come back on camera and unmute for a moment to go through an exercise with me?
Yeah, no problem. Let me come back. I'm right here, of course. Okay.
Wonderful.
Never went anywhere. So take copious notes, though. Okay.
Yay, I love it. I love it. And I want everybody, while we're going through this, to be thinking about which one of these that they want to be working on or one they've identified in their own life. But I want to work with this the perception of being pushy or sales is pushy, right? And so, and is that a belief that you currently have, George, that selling is pushy?
Well, I think it's a perception.
For sure.
Like I said, I don't believe it because to me, if it's perceived like that, then maybe you haven't you've got to convey like the benefits.
Yeah.
You have to, the person I think has to understand that you aren't really trying to be pushy, you're trying to help them. But that comes because you have been able to convey to them the benefits of the product that you're selling,
Absolutely.
So it won't be pushy, I don't think, if you have, so to try to flip it around, if you've given the benefits like the features, the advantages, the benefits, you have to really be effective with conveying that so that they won't feel you are being pushy. Okay?
Yeah.
If you just come in and start asking for the business and all of that, but you haven't really set it up properly for the customer, then yeah, you're going to come off as pushy and it's going to be perceived in a negative way than in a positive way.
Exactly. And that makes me think of another thing that wasn't in my presentation tonight, but I'm going to riff on what you just said a little bit because it reminded me of something I like to teach people. Is you said that if people come in and you ask for the business right away and you're not conveying the benefits or the features, the things that it's going to help that person, and you ask for the business right away, it's going to feel pushy. And I always like to create a parallel example between dating and sales because I think there's a lot of similarities in relationship and dating and selling, and people have a lot of complex feelings about both, right? And so I talk about what you just described as leaning in for the kiss too soon. And so it's breaking trust, it's breaking rapport. It's going back to that thing I was talking about at the beginning of the presentation, is that we have the responsibility of what you're talking about, the benefits and the features, that is doing the competency side of trust, right? And so we're building competency there and saying, you can trust me because what I have to offer you is helpful. But then the other nuanced part that I think a lot of times gets overlooked is that I care about you. You personally matter. You're not just a sale to me. You're not just a number, right? And so if we're trying to reframe this for people who might be feeling like when they're the ones selling, they're being pushy, other than just obviously working on techniques like you were talking about and getting more comfortable with demonstrating competency, how might we reframe it so that they can feel more empowered before they even start the conversation? Any ideas around that, George? How we might say, like, reframe being pushy?
Well, maybe doing the work to really know your customer and to know, again, what the needs are and things like that. So doing the work, I think could help smooth things out, right? So you get there, you show up, you know something about that customer, about their business, even about them personally. I think maybe all of that could help make it a smoother, softer. I saw in the chat that the young lady Saida, I think, used the word transactional.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a key word there. This whole transactional selling thing is better. I think maybe if you've done more to work up front to know the customer.
I think exactly. I think that realizing, so maybe rather than saying selling is pushy, selling is about relationships. Like, I think that would be a concise way. Selling is about helping. That goes back to the other thing I said earlier, or selling is about being present with people, like really seeing them and what their needs are. Selling is taking care of people. So I think that when you have reframed it in those ways, it can take the pressure off. Oh, I'm pushing something on someone. No, I'm there to build a relationship. And if it makes sense, I'm going to help them. Thank you, George. I appreciate you.
Yeah. Which means that it takes time too, Cassandra, I think, right? So that's the other thing. Maybe you're trying to close a sale too soon, right?
Exactly.
So you got to take time. Maybe it doesn't happen immediately. It takes a little time to build all these relationships and things like that. Okay. All right. Let me let you go to somebody else now. Okay.
Well, thank you, George. I appreciate it. Yeah. But I think that's a really good point too. It takes time to build trust and rapport. It goes back to that dating analogy, right? That idea that if we are leaning into for the kiss too soon, we're breaking that trust and rapport. But then also that, like, it's okay to see somebody from across the room pre-COVID and be like, oh, I like that person. I'm attracted to that person. I might be interested in them. It's okay to have that need or that want or that desire from go, but you're likely not going to walk up to them and lead with that. That's probably not the best way to start that conversation, but it doesn't mean that it's wrong or manipulative or insincere to have that feeling. There's just a time and a place to express that, and you have to build some relationship or some rapport first. So, great. I'm going to go ahead and move on from there, but what I want everyone to do is take a moment and see if they're able to find one of their own limiting beliefs and see if they can reframe it. And I'm not going to have you share it out right now, but I just want to give you a moment to write down a limiting belief you have right now, and then see if you can reframe it in a more empowered way. So make a new decision around that belief. And while you're doing that, I just want to also, I know I touched on this already, but as you're writing and thinking, I just want to share that it's okay to choose something that feels true to you right now in this moment and not to make too big of a leap. However, you do want to work to the most empowered version of whatever you can believe, because that is going to help you show up most successfully. All right. So one limiting belief that's really common, not necessarily around selling or money, but one that I have worked on, is that there's not enough time. That's a limiting belief that I have, and a lot of people have, right? There's never enough time. And it felt false to me just to flip it to there's plenty of time, right? It just was like, that feels like BS. That's just not true. I can't get on board. I can't get my brain working on that idea. However, I started with a new idea or a new decision that I would be more guarded with my time. Because I was like, that is a decision and a choice I can make. But I realized it still didn't, like, it worked for a while, but I realized it still wasn't putting me into an empowered place. It still was like treating time as I was in a scarcity mindset about it. Like, there's not enough. I have to guard it, right? And so I was like, I need to come up with something that feels more empowered about time. And the one that works for me now is that being truly present gives me the clarity to know how to spend my time. And so that is something I spend a lot of time. So, the way that we talk about time in our culture too, it's very interesting. And just the way that we talk about spending time and using time. But I focus on that being my truth now about time. If I'm truly present, then I will have the clarity to know how to spend my time. And I have been the most relaxed about time as I have ever been since I made that new decision. And the cool thing about how our brains work is when we have made this new decision, we are now having our brains looking for that decision. We have this kind of like confirmation bias, right? We have a belief, and then our brains need to prove that belief out. So our brains just naturally start doing that, or looking for the evidence. And so an example I want to give you, and this is an example that my coach often uses, and I want to share with you, is that if you buy a new blue car, you have the experience of having a blue car, and you've made the decision to buy a blue car. Now you notice all of the other blue cars on the road, right? That just happens. Is it that they just all of a sudden all went out and bought blue cars at the same time as you? Of course not. Those blue cars were always there. It's just that you have now become consciously aware of them. So that's what I want to connect the dots here about this new decision. The evidence that this is true is already there. You just have to start looking for it in your life. And I know that sometimes when you've made these new decisions, you're like, all right, I'm empowered, I'm ready, I'm going to be focused. My time example, presence will give me the clarity to know how to spend my time. I'm super present. I'm looking for the evidence that that's true. Sometimes it's difficult at first to find that evidence, and that's okay. And so I want to give you another tool to work with this. So the neat thing about our brains is that we don't know the difference between reality and imagination, or what we see and what we imagine. And again, that might sound a little woo-woo, but let me tease this out for you. There's scientific evidence that supports this. And one of the scientific experiments that supports this is a really cool story about how they took piano players and hooked their brains up to map out the parts of their brain that lit up when they played the piano. So they did that. And then they had the piano players do this. They kept their brains hooked up just like before to map out their brains, and then had them just imagine playing the piano. And the exact same spots of the brain lit up. The brain did not know the difference between imagining playing the piano and actually doing it. And so the reason I connect that to what we're talking about here is realizing that if you're not seeing the evidence right now, vision work can really help us be able to create that new evidence in our life. And some people, they're doing vision work comes up in a lot of different ways. We don't have time for me to teach you a bunch of different ways to do vision work, but I will offer that, meditation is one way that people do it. The way that I like to do it, because I have a hard time sitting quietly in silence and with my eyes closed, just doesn't work very well for me. And so what I do is I have a vision board. So I have something visual that anchors me. And then I spend time looking at that. And it helps me imagine that. And then what's happening is our brains are creating a memory of a future that we are envisioning for ourselves. So I offer that as a way as you're shifting into these new decisions. And the neat thing is you can always have the ability to make a new decision. So if something's not working for you, if you try out a new decision, you always have the ability, if it's not working for you, to make a new decision. And why am I spending so much time in a sales masterclass talking about limiting beliefs and decisions, right? Well, I want to share with you why that is. If you truly want to help others, you have to eliminate your limiting beliefs. And the reason for that is because your potential customers, clients, are showing up to you with their own limiting beliefs about money, about sales, about themselves, about the world. And there's not room for your baggage too. There's just not. You have to clear space so that you can show up and be truly present to take care of that person in front of you. They need for you to take a powerful stand for them and hold space for them. And what I mean by hold space is that people are bringing their own baggage in. They're having to work through their own problems. And depending on what you're selling, you may be asking them to part with a lot of money. You may be asking them to make a tough decision for their life or to make a big decision about a life change, right? It just depends. Or to trust in a new service. It may not even be some big life change, but they are having to build trust with you quickly in order to part with their money in order to have your service or your product, right? So you need to create space for them to be able to make those decisions. And if you're wrestling with your own pieces, you can't be able to take a powerful stand and hold space for people to your fullest ability if you're wrestling with your own fears. Okay. And that doesn't mean that you're not capable of selling, that you're not capable of doing a good job in your business. It just means that your brain is having this unconscious or subconscious dissonance or fight with itself because it's trying to protect you from all those things you don't want to be: greedy, pushy, dishonest. If you believe those things, they're gonna show up in your sales conversations. Okay. And a lot of us, a lot of mission-driven entrepreneurs, because we care about people, because we're good at connecting with people in some aspects of our communication skills, we're able to compensate for some of this by over-delivering, by over-giving, by all of those things. But when we do that, again, we end up burned out because we're overcompensating with other areas that we're good at rather than dealing with the stuff that's getting in our way. Does that make sense? So once we're able to work through those limiting beliefs, and again, it's not that you can't, we carry around limiting beliefs with us all day, every day. It doesn't mean that we are unproductive or incapable of doing good, wonderful things. It just means that we are not going to be at our fullest ability and capability when we have these limiting beliefs in our way. And then the last thing I want to talk to you about tonight is that 85% of business owners misunderstand human connection. And that statistic, by the way, because I realized I didn't give credit to where that statistic comes from, is a study that happened where people who had prospective calls with salespeople, those prospects were interviewed afterwards and were asked questions about, did you feel heard? Did you feel understood? Did you feel helped? And I think there were a couple of other ones that I'm reaching for that I can't remember right now. And 85% of people said no. 85% of people got off a call and said no, or that they were less than 100% satisfied with their ability to feel heard and understood and helped. So that means 85% of business owners or salespeople misunderstand human connection. However, when it's used effectively, human connection actually eliminates stress around sales and costs you nothing to do. As business owners and as salespeople, we're often chasing after how can I spend the right money in the right places to get the right people in the door, right? And it's so fused with marketing, right? But my belief is that when you're able to effectively connect with people, it is such a powerful way to be able to increase your ability to sell, increase your ability to grow your business, and again, cost you nothing to do. And also, P.S., people are bad at this only because they haven't been taught, okay? So it's not that you're not capable of it. It is just that our society doesn't always it often does not create intentional, purposeful space for people to hone these skills, okay? And a lot of times people think they're better at it than they are, which goes back to the statistic too. I think a lot of salespeople and business owners would be shocked to hear that people are feeling that way when they get off sales calls. But it's because we see how we are good at it in other areas, right? We go, I love helping people. That's why I started my business in the first place. I love helping people. I'm good at connecting. I could talk to anybody. I've never known a stranger, right? Those type of people. I'm one of those people. But realizing that there are different ways that we connect and the different ways that we show up. And when we are comfortable and showing up in that way is very different than when we're bringing in those limiting beliefs or those discomforts with selling. And it shuts us down and it disconnects us in ways that sometimes we're not even conscious of. So what I'm going to talk about moving on from here is the ways that I believe that human connection really can happen. And I think there are 5 key elements to authentic human connection. And we've already unpacked the first one, which is an empowered mindset. If you already are showing up with an empowered mindset, you are already ready to be a conduit for this authentic human connection. So that's key element number 1. I also want to let you know that we are not going to have time to deep dive into all 5 like we did with the empowered mindset. There's only one other that I'm going to deeply unpack. And only, I guess, deeply is relative too. We only have so much time together, but we'll unpack it. The second one I want to share with you that we are not going to spend a lot of time on tonight, but I do want to bring it up, is preparation. And so really being intentional about preparing to have conversations with people, whether it's around feedback, whether it's about leadership, whether it's about sales. Doing your homework and getting ready for that conversation makes all the difference. That person feels seen and heard and valued when you prepare. That's all I have to say about that tonight. I could do a whole lesson just on preparation. In fact, would you say, George?
I think about doing the work. Remember I said that, doing the work.
Exactly. Right? Yes, exactly, George. Doing the work. Right. Exactly. Tracy has been actually at one of my a full workshop just about preparation. So she knows it's true. I can do a whole workshop just on preparation. The third one is what I call spherical listening. And that's another one that we're not going to unpack deeply tonight, but I did want to bring it up so that you have an awareness of it, because a lot of times we listen, we are just like naturally trained, programmed, however you want to say it, to listen to respond. And at the next level, most people realize is listen to understand or to learn, right? Those are kind of the 2 ways that our brains kind of click over. Most of you are probably in the listening to learn or understand right now because you're in a class, right? But there are also several other ways that if we can master these different ways of listening, then we are able to just go from being a good listener to a phenomenal listener. And being able to shift into being a phenomenal listener will make all the difference, not only in sales, but just your ability to have that authentic human connection in all areas of your life. The fourth thing that I believe is a key element, not I believe it is, it just is, I'm going to own it, is threaded questioning. And that is the other thing that we're going to unpack and look at more closely tonight. So I'm going to wait to unpack that for a moment until we talk about the 5th one. And the 5th one is consistency or follow-up. And I say follow-up, that is only one demonstration of consistency. Being consistent in your messaging, being consistent in your personhood, being consistent in your connection to people, all of that is different ways that we can show up and be consistent. And again, I could do a whole lesson, maybe a whole series on consistency. But tonight, what I want to be able to offer you and share with you is more, I will recap these first, and then we'll get into threaded questioning. So again, just to recap, the 5 key elements to authentic human connection are an empowered mindset, preparation, spherical listening, threaded questioning, and consistency. And so threaded questioning has 2 parts, and I'm going to unpack just the questioning part first. So I want to encourage you, first of all, you can make all the difference in your ability to sell better by asking more questions, okay? You're going to be able to be more effectively connected to people. You're going to get clearer on how to help them. You're going to be able to offer better support by waiting to offer solutions. Again, mission-driven entrepreneurs, we're there to help. We're excited. We've got solutions. We want to give them to you. We want to make your life better. And so a lot of times we hear the surface problem or the surface concern, and we go, let me help fix that pain point for you, right? And we jump right into our solution. But if we're able to pump the brakes and ask more questions, we're actually going to be able to offer better support to them by waiting to offer solutions. Because we might have a whole plethora of ways that we can help them, but we're going to be able to get really clear on what that person specifically needs and the ways that we can specifically show up and help them in our business if we ask more questions. So I want to give you an example of asking more questions conversation. I also want to recognize that when I was preparing this, Bruce told me that this conversation you're about to see sounds like an alien and a 2-year-old had a conversation. So I want to recognize that does not sound like a natural human conversation, but I wanted to simplify it so you could see what I mean about asking more questions, okay? So, person says the car won't start. Why? The battery is dead. Why? The alternator is not functioning. Why? Now you can see why it's like a 2-year-old. The alternator belt has broken. Why? The alternator belt was well beyond its useful service life and not replaced. Why? The vehicle was not maintained according to the recommended service schedule. Why? I moved to the city a couple years ago and felt too overwhelmed to find a new mechanic. Aha, there's the root of the problem. And all of a sudden, our little alien sounds very human, right? I moved to the city a couple years ago and felt too overwhelmed to find a new mechanic. Now, an average mechanic is going to probably ask at least the first why. The car won't start. Why? The battery is dead. Well, then they could jump right to a conclusion and say, well, let's jump the battery, right? But in this case, would that actually even fix the problem? No, the car's not going to start because the alternator is not working. So by not asking another why or another question to dig into that, it doesn't have to be why. We don't have to be the 2-year-old why, but asking more questions, then we would have gotten to the fact that the alternator is not functioning. Well, then that moves us in from being an average mechanic into maybe a good mechanic. I found out the alternator is not working. I asked a couple more questions. The vehicle was not maintained according to the recommended service schedule. That might get us to like great mechanic level. We go, oh my goodness, there's probably a lot more going on here then. It's probably not just the alternator. It's maybe some other things going on. And I want to really take care of you and do a once over, make sure everything's taken care of. But the difference between being great and being phenomenal is getting to this human problem. The fact that the person was so overwhelmed, they didn't take care of their car because they couldn't find a new mechanic. Imagine how that mechanic could show up differently and support that person if they got to that root problem, right? That is why asking more questions matters. But I want to show a more realistic kind of conversation, and I want to connect it to the idea of threaded questions, because the why is not threading. And what I mean by threading conversations is that you want to be able to respond to the questions and make sure that your response and the question that you're about to ask directly relates to the answer they just gave. That shows that you're listening. It allows for demonstration that or a room for them to correct you if maybe you repeat something and it's wrong. And it allows for you to connect the dots from what they just said to the next thing that you're asking, which means you can't pre-plan your questions. And that's where the preparation is important, but you also have to be fully present and really engaged in listening, because you can't pre-plan your questions in a threaded conversation or a threaded question. And then from there, you also, and this is the difference between being good or great and being phenomenal, is choosing a question that guides you both to your goal achievement. And by goal achievement, what I mean is most likely as a salesperson, you're trying to either determine whether or not you can help this person because you don't know enough about them yet, or you already know that you can help them and you need to help them see that the solution that you have will help them, right? So those are usually generically one of the two goal achievements. Either I need to figure out if I can help them, or I already know I can, and I need them to see that I can help them, right? And so it's not just about listening and responding, but also being very intentional about asking questions that lead you both to figuring out the answer to, can I help you, or can you see that I can help you, right? And so what I want to do is give you an example of what that would look like. So here's an example of a threaded conversation or threaded questioning. So in this scenario, you've booked a sales call with a prospect who has visited your website. And for the sake of this, we're going to also say your business sells branded merchandise and gifts. Okay. So you get on this call and you say something to the effect of, so glad we could chat. So what made you decide to jump on the call with me today? Pretty standard way to open a sales call. Prospect: I heard some nice things from my friend who uses your services, so we decided to check it out. Okay, we have some information there. They've been checking out our services. They've heard nice things. That's good, right? And they heard it from a friend. We have information that we can work with here. So the next question then, or the next response I would say is, oh, that's great. We love it when our customers send people our way. Who was it that referred you? The reason that the referral question is important is a couple different things. You probably want to thank that customer and show appreciation to that person, right? Because that will help build that relationship and that rapport and that appreciation. And then also it's going to tell you more information about the specifics of what their friend is talking about, because most likely you have a lot of different ways that you serve people. And if you know who that customer is, you can have more clarity about how you serve that other customer, right? So from there, prospect says, my friend Sari, she's been getting stuff from you for years, and she says that you've all been great to work with. Fantastic. Now I know it's Sari. Cool. Now I know, okay, this is how Sari uses my services. So then I can respond, or you can respond, oh, we love Sari. She usually uses our services to get branded merchandise to sell at her events. Was that what you had in mind, or what in particular were you looking for? So I'm connecting it to, were you wanting the same thing that Sari does, or what else were you thinking about, right? See how that connects? This person says, we're considering getting something to give our clients, and I thought something with our brand on it would be a good idea. Okay, so that's different. Sari sells branded merchandise at our events, but this person wants to give something branded as a gift to their clients. So that's a little bit different. So then I validate, or you validate, the idea. Gifts for your clients sounds like a great idea, but then that's where a lot of times the conversation, even a good sales conversation, might stop. We might launch into, this is our gift line, and let me tell you all about it, and what's your budget, and da-da-da-da. Those are the kinds of questions. But if you stick with this type of questioning, it's going to help you better serve the client. Why is that important for you? Because we want to stay top of mind for our clients. Okay, well, that's not a very deep answer. That's okay. People aren't used to giving really deep answers about things. Our brains are trained to give the most surface answer. We aren't thinking deeply about it. But then I want to know more, because of course businesses want to stay top of mind. So I'm going to say, that makes sense. Why is that particularly important for your business right now? What are they trying to do? Why do they need to be top of mind right now? They respond, well, our clients often contract our services way in advance. Because of this, sometimes the relationships go a bit cold between contracting us and rendering services. Okay. I see. And how have you seen the relationship cooling off like that affect your business specifically? So we need to learn about what's going on in that relationship and by that event or that experience, right? And they respond, well, we really rely on clients renewing these contracts year after year for our revenue goals. And I think that when people feel less connected to us, they're less likely to stick with us every year. Aha. I say in my slide, aha. Their retention rates are being affected by long gaps in communication. Now, here's the thing. Now I think we've gotten to a root, at least one of the roots of what's going on here, right? And I believe that to stay in the center of integrity, if I were owning this business, would say something to the effect of, I think a gift for your clients might be a really great idea and might help them feel more connected to you. But let me ask y'all who are watching, is buying just a branded gift going to solve this problem in its entirety? If they have long gaps in communication and the relationship is cooling off, is it likely that this is going to be the end all be all problem solver? No, but I also don't want you to lose the business, right? I think that a gift is part of the solution. I think it's a great idea. I think as the salesperson, I have a responsibility to recognize, and that's going into consulting in the best way, to say, I really think that we can help you by getting you a gift, and I think that that will really make a difference. I also want to have you explore some other ideas, because I think that there's some multiple steps that might be able to best serve you, right? And if you have somebody in your network that you think, oh, this might be helpful. For example, I have a friend who's a copywriter. I might be able to say, my friend who's a copywriter, she writes newsletters for businesses and that has really great content that gives value to customers in between services, right? And so if you want, I don't want to push my friend's services on you, but if you'd like, I can connect you. And that might be another solution that would help with this problem too. Or even if I don't have a friend to recommend to them to help with this problem, just being honest that you aren't a magic pill. If you see the problem is bigger than you, allows them to trust you more, allows you to build that trust with them, and allows you to better serve them because you know where you fit into this world with them. Does that make sense? Now, you could have just been like, great, I'm so excited you want to buy branded things with your business, merchandise. Let's do it. We could have done there, and they might have still done business with you, but see how different the relationship is going to be and how much better you're going to be able to serve them? That is why having threaded conversations and asking questions matters. So I mentioned how important practice is, right? And so I'm going to create some space for us to practice this threaded questioning, listening to what the person is saying right before us and responding. Before we jump into that, I just want to remind you that I think all forms of practice are great, but one of the exciting things about intentionally doing it in a space like this is that Bruce, who's going to come off mute and join me in just a moment, is trained in having these kinds of conversations with people. He has experience in being able to push a role play along and get to an outcome that we are working on together. And also, you have the privilege and the benefit of having not one, but two communication coaches here to help you in ways that your mom just can't. It's great to practice with your mom, but it's just not the same as having Bruce and I here to help you. So what I would like is I'm going to turn it over to Bruce, and he's going to explain what this exercise is going to be.
Yeah, hi, folks. As Cassandra said, my name is Bruce Phillips, and I wanted to take this opportunity to lead a conversation about this threaded questioning. So it's a chance for us to get a little bit of role play in. And what I need is somebody that has an opportunity that they might be working with clients. They might have something to sell. Is there somebody currently on our chat that would like to give this a try? Just, you can come off the camera if you want, or give me a wave. And if not, I get to pick you. Great. Let's go with George. You unmuted.
Yeah, because I've already done one, so I will just let you know.
I'm aware of that.
I'm good, baby. All right, okay.
Yeah, I'm curious. I think I don't know everyone's business here too, so there might be a situation about like how often we're working with clients, or if this skill set is particularly in yours. And I've worked with Tracy before on this. Let's just do this. George, you're on camera. Can I use you again?
Yes.
Gotcha. And I think it's actually.
I don't mind participating either if you don't want to do it, George.
Oh, Christina. Well, let's use you. I would love to. A, just to have a different person involved, and B, George has 30 years certainly of experience on this.
Right.
I think it'll be very interesting to get sort of a different perspective on this. Thank you very much for that.
Of course, of
All right.
course.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and spotlight you and me then. So, Christina, though everybody here and following along probably knows a good amount about what it is you do, could you help me, just give me a quick sort of recap about what is a situation, who is a client that you might find yourself in sort of a sales conversation with? Who might I be in this conversation?
So you can be a few different people. You can be a person who is in the idea phase, like you want to start a business, but you don't necessarily know how to get started. You just know that you want to start a business, but you want the support of a business coach.
Mm-hmm.
You could be a business who wants a grant for your company to, get access to capital and be able to spend those dollars on whatever is needed in that particular situation. Or you could be interested in business education. So you may want to be a part of an online course or an online masterclass like this. So you're interested in business education in some form.
Would you say that the people you work with primarily, or that you want to be working with, are all current in the world of coaching or looking to expand into that world as well? Or do you work with people that are like, I'm in HR and I just want communication training?
My ideal client is a person who has experience professionally in the field that they want to start a business in. When I talk about that startup person. So I'm not teaching coaches to coach, but I'm really working with people. Maybe you've been doing a particular job for 10 years and it's like, I want to start my own business. I know how to do this task, but I need support with the business side of what I'm doing to make sure it makes sense and it will in the end be successful.
That's great. So you don't even, it's not that you are giving them insight into a specific field. You'll work with any field. Your experience is business beginnings.
Exactly. Small business I'm a small business coach or a startup business. So really in the small business realm, not big box, not, small business is my particular industry of choice.
That is fascinating. You probably have a lot of different stories.
Yeah, a lot. I work with
a
lot of amazing people. Because business, what's interesting about business in general is that it's the same, the different variances in the industry or the tasks or services that you are doing, that might be different, but the fundamental principles of business are truly the same. So to have that objective sounding board of someone who has experience in small business is seemingly helpful for people. And it makes sense,
That's great. Okay. Well, I think I've got an idea of who I could be in this. I'll be someone who's looking to start a business and wants to work with you. I think where we'll start in this conversation is the idea that I'm trying to get information about what your services are to me, like what I can get. So I'm going to be looking to see if we are a good match.
Gotcha.
And what you're going to work on is this idea of this threaded conversation that Cassandra talked about, trying to learn exactly how you fit into what I need. But I also encourage you to run this as a sales call that you would do. Just try to keep that idea of questions in mind and see if you can find out the root of my real problems.
Perfect. Okay.
Great.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so thanks very much, Christina, for meeting with me and having this call with me today.
I'm so excited to talk to you, Bruce. I want to learn more about you. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I have been working in sort of real estate and leasing for the last 6 years. 6 years as manager and then 5 years before that. I'm interested in sort of reaching out to becoming a new property management company. Over my time working with a lot of different organizations, I've worked with people that are landlords, but also people who take care of buildings and, electricians. And I sort of build up this network. And what I'm interested in is connecting with business leaders, property owners, and being able to bring in a management company to help run sort of a plug and play business to help manage their buildings.
Nice. So you are a new business, or are you already established?
New business. I have a connection. I have a couple people I know that own buildings that are kind of in this process. And I've been toying around with this idea for maybe a year or so. And I'm looking towards making it a reality.
Nice. And so you mentioned earlier your experience in project management. So is that really the main function of the business, or what would you say will be the main functions of your business?
It's property management.
I'm
So
sorry.
no worries. It's the idea that like if you move in, if you're going to rent a unit in a building, the company that collects your rent, that generates the leasing information, like I think a lot of big buildings, the guy who owns the building doesn't do that work. They hire a property management company to run the administrative side of it. And that's what I've been doing for a number of years for these big companies. And I'm looking to start it on my own with just like 3 or 4 buildings, things like that.
Gotcha. So why do you want to leave your job? What are you experiencing there that makes you want to go and do it on your own now?
I've always wanted to own my own business.
Mm.
You know, I think that that's the natural next step for me. I've kind of gone as high as I can, or I think want to, with the company that I'm with. You know, I manage a couple people right now, and the pay's fine and everything. There's no real big problems. I think that they're a little bureaucratic, which I don't like. And I'm interested in sort of streamlining it. I think that they own so many buildings that tenants stop being people necessarily, and sometimes they don't interact face to face. And I want to run a property management that knows the people that live in the buildings.
Nice. So what have you done so far to start your business? Have you taken any first steps?
Well, I've got basic. I'm working on sort of our executive plan. I have a business partner that wants to work with me on this. That's been a property manager himself, and I have a couple contacts of people I know that are probably going to be looking for new leasing managers, property managers in the next couple years,
Gotcha.
and a couple that are looking actively now.
Gotcha. So have you formally established yourself as an LLC or an incorporation?
We're waiting for LLC paperwork to come through, but that should be end of the month.
Perfect. And so it sounds like you are getting started on the right foot. You're getting your business established. You're working on the executive summary. So have you identified how you're going to implement the plan that you are coming up with in the executive summary? Part of what you will touch on is marketing, right? So it sounds like you should have some relationships in the market already, which will serve you well when you think about getting those first few clients. Relationships are really important. But aside from having those relationships, what plan of action do you have in place to really meet that target market that you're looking to reach?
This is great. I have a lot of those details in our market plan. I want to talk briefly, if I can, about you and sort of your connection with me on this. Like, how do you see? Obviously, I'm looking to reach out to find to find someone to help sort of keep me on track and guide me through this sort of process. Is that something that you feel that you can do? How do you fit in with what I want to do?
So if you're looking for real estate specific help, I would not be the person to support you. But if you're really looking from a business perspective, so when you think about a business plan in total, because what my recommendation would be for you, in addition to an executive summary, is to truly create a fully fleshed out business plan. And the reason that's my recommendation is because it really touches on each aspect of the business that is very important for you to have a grasp on, so that you're successful in this project, right? So it touches on the HR piece. What people do you need in place? You can't do it all by yourself. It touches on that marketing and sales plan. It touches on the financial plan, which is talking about your budget and how much money are you really working with. It talks about the operations and processes. How are you actually doing what it is that you say your company does? So I can support you in helping you all develop that business plan and a pitch deck which is a great marketing tool for you. So you can start preluding conversations with an illustrative, high level deck that gives people more information about you and your company. But we also offer business coaching. So if you truly need coaching in the process of building the infrastructure of your business, I can help you. But if you need support specific to real estate, that is not my field of expertise.
Great.
And we're going to pause there. First of all, let's celebrate Christina. Woo!
Thanks,
How
Christina.
Thank you.
are you feeling, Christina?
I need some water, okay?
Yeah, please take a drink. But yeah, I wanna unpack that with you a little bit and check in. I first of all want to celebrate the fact that like you did a great job of getting to 5 or 6 questions before you ever jumped into telling him about what you do and how you can support him. And in fact, we got to the point where he was asking you questions about the support, right? So tell me how you're feeling right now, though, going through that process.
I mean, it feels good. I will say that because of the type of business that I have to have these type of conversations to make sure I can help people.
Yeah.
So I will say that it is a little more natural for me maybe than other people who don't have to almost interview people before I'm like, okay, I can work with you. I can help you.
Yeah.
But it's a good exercise. I think it was a great exercise in knowing that it wasn't, you were intentionally. So it was good for me to see like, okay, Christina, can you really do this? Like, can you keep the conversation going? So this was good. It was a good exercise. I enjoyed it.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah, I think that there's certain types of businesses that lend itself to needing to vet out customers more than other businesses. And I think yours definitely, you have to go through that vetting process. And I think that more businesses actually need to do that than take the time to do it. I think that we get so excited that people are like, oh, they want to work with me. And they jump in and they realize, oh, this isn't the right fit, or I can't help people. And then again, it goes back to that trust piece, right? Then it's broken trust, and then it's the hurt, and then it's I've been sold something that doesn't work for me. And if we went through this vetting process where we're asking more questions and making sure we're the right fit, then we're going to be able to make sure that we're best taking care of people and finding the right clients for us. One of the things I really loved is that you called back to what he shared. You and in a moment and said, well, at one moment you accidentally called it project management, but because you repeated it rather than just saying, oh, that type of business, he was able to go, oh, actually property management. So that was a moment where by listening and repeating what you had heard, it allowed for him to clarify and you to get on the same page. So I think that that's really a great example of why repeating what we're hearing. And you did it in a really natural way. I think that sometimes when people get really mechanical about it, it can feel a little stilted, but I think you did it in a way that just felt natural. Yeah. And I think that at the end, you were celebrating like, you're getting off on the right foot. You have the executive summary, you have some of these other pieces, and you celebrated. And again, it showed that you heard what he was saying. And then also lended some of your expertise to say, I think that these are some other areas that you might need help on. I think that, Bruce, did you have any other ideas that you wanted to share as we're wrapping this up?
Not immediately. I think that you did a really great job. I think that something that I see that happens with a lot of coaches is it can be easy to make these conversations slip into coaching. Did you feel that? I feel that's why I started asking you questions, because I was like, you're giving me a lot of advice for free right now. Like,
and I
this
do
is
it
lovely.
all the time. That's hilarious that you caught that.
Oh yeah.
That's good. I do that all the time. I would just start rattling like, well, you know what? You should probably do. So that's good. That's good feedback. It really is.
Thank you, Bruce.
I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah, Christina, I didn't mean to talk over you.
Oh, no. I was just saying I appreciate that. That's good.
Yeah, and I think that like asking the question about like, why do you want to leave your job? Bruce, did you actually say you wanted to leave your job, or did she infer that?
She inferred it, but inferred it correctly. Like I said I want to start a business and that I'm currently employed.
Got it. Yeah. So just being mindful, sometimes we make these micro assumptions. And in this case, it worked out. But I think that sometimes realizing that our brains kind of make these micro assumptions, and we may have to be careful about those things too, because sometimes we are wrong. We go, oh,
right.
So yeah, but overall, I was just really impressed about how comfortable the conversation. Like I, for a moment, forgot that we were doing a simulation. I was like, this could be a real thing. Is Bruce starting a property management company? If anybody's just catching our live, like in the middle, they might think that that's what we were talking about today.
I'm not. Don't call me to manage your property, please. I can't help you.
Oh goodness. Well, thank you so much for Christina for being willing to participate in that exercise. And I think that it just allows for us to try out these skills in an environment where we have an outside perspective and we're able to get some of those feedback, like, because when we're in it, it's hard to notice those things about ourselves. So even when we're good at what we do, having an outside eye to go, oh, did you notice like some of the things that we were talking about earlier, right? Oh, this micro assumption, or you're giving away a lot of advice, right? And those are things that like can be helpful when you have the opportunity to practice, even when you're doing really well. So what I'm going to do is get right back in so that we can wrap up. I know that we're getting near to the end of our time together. And so as we are wrapping up, I just want to offer that like going through sales in a new way, where you're being intentional about the practice that you're putting in, you're being intentional about the mindset you're bringing into the room, and then also really focusing on human connection and that being the foundation of what you're doing is a new way, or not, I don't want to say a new way, but a different way to show up in your business and doing sales than I think a lot of people are doing. And you can certainly continue to do things the way that you're doing them if you are not following this process. But what I want to talk about is what happens if you don't change. And so that's where I want to take the conversation next. If you decide to continue business as usual, doing things the way that you're doing them, then you're going to continue running away from being this guy and this guy. And you're going to continue to be plagued by those subconscious conversations and roadblocks that are coming up around our limiting beliefs. And we're going to continue to overgive and overdeliver, feel stressed and overwhelmed, and eventually and ultimately burned out, and continue chasing after tools to add to our toolbox without ever taking the time to hone them and figure out how to implement them in our business. So that's what's going to happen if you choose to continue business as usual. But what's even more serious, and what I want to share, is what the real cost of being that way is. And this is a quote from my sales coach, Shamika Tankerson. You are the water to someone who is desperately thirsty. Let me say that again. You are water to someone who is desperately thirsty. And so the people that need you, you won't be able to help the people who need you if you continue operating in that way. That is the real cost. And there's a lot of programs out there giving you a lot of strategies and techniques and tools. And I'm not saying that they don't work. Of course they do, or they wouldn't be able to be out there selling them. At least some of them work. Maybe there's some that don't. But the point is that there are lots of things that can work in your business. But a lot of times we get overwhelmed by that. And again, we end up with that junk drawer full of tools, or that toolbox full of tools that we don't know how to use. So I want to encourage you to cut through the noise and realize that to be effective in your business and effective in sales, it really is just three things. Replace limiting beliefs with empowered decisions. Hone communication and relationship building skills. And I'm going to pause on this one and talk about it for a moment. It is important that you continue to work on your communication and relationship building skills forever, just ongoing. Being intentional about putting effort into getting better at those things. That is why I encourage everyone to create intentional space to practice. Because just like world-class athletes continue to have coaches, they need that outside eye, they need that support to be able to help them. And here's the thing, that's kind of getting into my third point, but even in this one, honing communication and relationship building skills. When you are not purposefully exercising these muscles, just like our physical muscles, they atrophy. They get rusty. we're not able to utilize them as well as we think we can. It's the difference between the fact that because I am fortunate enough to be an able-bodied person, I, by that nature, have the ability to walk out my front door and run right now if I wanted to. But the difference between me being able to run down the block and and me being able to run a marathon is being intentional about honing my skills and abilities in that area. I am not developed enough in my running abilities and my strength and my endurance and all of that to be able to run a marathon right now. I may never be, because I might not be intentional about developing those skills. I plan on running a half marathon, and now I've said that publicly, so now you all can hold me accountable to it. But understanding that we have to be intentional about honing our skills on a regular basis, or we lose them. And then practice with people who are skilled to support you. And that's really what I was getting into about that coaching idea, right? Professional athletes have coaches. It doesn't mean that they aren't world class and that they aren't phenomenal at what they do, but to continue to be phenomenal and continue to be at the caliber that they're at, they have intentional support. And I'm not saying that I have to be your person. I'm not everybody's jam, and I'm not going to be the best fit for everyone. But I am someone who does intentionally help people practice and get the support they need in these areas of communication. And so whether it's me or it's someone else, I encourage you to seek out that support from someone who is trained and able to help you. So it's really just those three things. And really it just comes down to when you do those things, you're able to connect better, to be better. And that's what I believe that I am here to help people with. One area of expertise that I have is sales, but that's just one lens of connecting, right? And it happens to work. But I help business owners and business leaders and other professional type people, whether they're business leaders or not, be able to connect better, to be better. I do that through leadership training, teamwork training, sales team training. So not just as the business owner being able to develop your skills, but being able to develop teams, because you may not want to always be the one selling in your business, or you may already be managing a sales team. And so understanding that whether it's in relationships around team or leadership or business development or sales, those are all areas that I believe are rooted, like I said at the beginning, in relationship building and communication, which really comes down to connection, right? So I've had a really lovely time sharing all of this with you and being in this space with you. And I want to be able to keep the conversation going, but I'm noticing the time. And so we're going to wrap up there. And I want to invite you to have a one-on-one conversation with me, because it's one thing to be in a group, and there's a lot of value in group conversations. There's also a lot that can be gained from having intentional one-on-one conversations. So I invite you to keep the conversation going. And I'm giving everyone who is here right now, or if you're watching, you don't have to be in the Zoom room right now. You're welcome, if you're watching this as a replay or live right now, to schedule a 75-minute session with me. And you're able to do that by going to cassandraquinn.com/contact. And in just a moment after I'm done talking, because I'm bad at multitasking, I will put it in the chat. But I want to set aside that time to talk with you so that we can chat about the ways that you want to hone your connection and your ability to purposefully and authentically grow your business and make a difference. And I want to be able to give you clarity on the different ways that you can do that. And if I'm someone from after that conversation who can continue to support you, fantastic. We can talk about what that looks like. If I just give you clarity about the next steps that you want to take, and I'm not your person, that's also fantastic. I love helping people find the clarity and pointing them in the direction of the support and help that they need. And for taking the time to chat with me in that session. I know that I said there were 5 key elements of human connection, and we really only dug into 2 of them, right? We dug into mindset and we dug into threaded questioning. And so I want to be able to give you a tool to help you with another one of those, which was preparation. So I have a preparation workbook that helps people prepare for authentic conversations that have an ask, like networking or selling, and helps you prepare for those conversations. And as a thank you for spending that time with me, if you sign up, then I will also give you my preparation workbook to help you with another area of connection. And so now that I've said all of that, I will open the chat and there is the link. And I encourage you, not because I want to be pushy, but because I know that a lot of times we have all of the best intentions to say, oh, I'll take care of that later. I encourage you, if you're interested in spending some time chatting with me, go ahead and sign up for a time. I will let you know what my services are in that chat, full disclosure, but I also just want to help you. I like to help people. That's why I got into my business. And so I want to support you and be happy to support you in that chat, regardless of whether we do business together after that. But feel free to sign up for a time. I will let you know my calendar this week is pretty packed, but there is some times open. Feel free to grab any of those. They're open for a reason. And then next week is very open. So feel free to grab up one of those times if you don't see a time that works for you this week. And then also, you're welcome to find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, those types of things. You're welcome to connect with me there. I love to stay connected with people. But yes, I would encourage you to take a moment and sign up for a time for us to chat. So I think that that's everything I wanted to share with you for tonight, since I'm noticing our time. So I'm going to turn it over to Christina, and just thank you so much, Christina, again, for creating space for me to do this and to share with you and having me be with you tonight. And thank you so much.
You are so welcome, Cassandra. This was so good. I took really good notes for myself, and I hope that I am confident that everyone will be able to say the same, that we got some really good information. And thinking about it, I like the fact that we thought about it from decision making and limiting beliefs. If I'll start to share my feedback, and then I'm going to go to everyone else. But I think that is very interesting to take that take on sales and relationship building, because it is so true. You don't really realize that these things that you've learned throughout the years are just experience that you've had, and they're ingrained, and it literally makes you show up differently. It's important to be effective in sales. I mean, it's important. It's part of your ability to survive. Unless you just have something that people just are dying to have, you have to be able to sell your products or services. So to be able to recognize those limiting beliefs for me was very helpful, because now going into these conversations, I can be more mindful of the limiting beliefs that I do have, which mine's really, really was. I put like 3 in the chat, but I think my number 1 really is being concerned about people's ability to afford the services, because I want to help people so bad, but it's like, you have to stand firm on your prices because all that goes into it. But for me, I go into these conversations sometimes with apprehension, even telling people a price, because in my mind or my subconscious, it's like, they probably don't have the money, and then they're not going to be able to get help. So that's my feedback. I thought this was extremely, extremely helpful. Really, really great information. So thank you for your time, and thank you for your wisdom and for sharing that with us.
My pleasure. Yeah, limiting beliefs really, I think, are the cornerstone. If we can tackle those, that we can make a big difference in being able to show up more powerfully in our businesses and helping people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm going to go in the order of my screen, and I just want to get some feedback. I want us to be able to share with Cassandra how this masterclass has shifted mindsets, or just what light bulbs have gone off, what feedback that you have to share. So George, you're next on my screen. So if you don't mind just sharing some feedback with us.
Yeah, a lot of feedback. First of all, I thought it was outstanding and very, very valuable, very beneficial. So thank you, Cassandra, very much. Again, all my years of experience, I learned a lot tonight. So thank you. 3 key points for me were, and I got a lot, but 3 that stood up: 90% are waiting to be asked. That was early on. And I was always taught to ask for the business, the old AFTB. Okay. So it was good to have that reinforced tonight. And your point about 85% of business owners misunderstand human connection. That to me was a light bulb going off, and it comes back again to doing the work and, building the relationship, the connection. But 85% of business owners misunderstand human connection. And, that's very important to be able to connect, so, and then the practice piece. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been in with sales teams that were top performers, but we never liked the role play, right? They didn't want to practice. So just imagine how much better we all could have been if we had practiced like you made us do tonight. Okay. So, a great course. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that the role play, I think sometimes can be sticky for people, especially when they've had maybe some negative experiences, or like when you're role playing with a colleague, people are like feeling sometimes a little awkward or self-conscious. They feel like they're having to act, they're like having to reach for those things. And that's why I think like working with people who are trained to do it, who are there to educate and to teach in the way that Bruce has been trained and has that experience, makes all the difference in being able to have a really positive experience with role playing. But yeah, I agree that sometimes people are really hesitant to get into role plays.
Thank you, Bruce. Or thank you, Bruce. Thank you, George. I'm looking at Bruce's name.
Hey, you're welcome.
Tracy, I will pick on you next. Can you share with us just some feedback, what you thought, what you took away from this?
Well, I've always thought Cassandra was was awesome because I've done a couple of classes with her. The takeaway for me was also the 90%. That was very eye-opening. I never really thought, just simply ask for the sale. But I also took away, of course, you have to practice, but your beliefs definitely play a role. And I took that because how I grew up. When you grow up in a situation where you don't have a lot of money, asking for money or someone asking you for money has always been contentious. So, and you always think the other person is thinking the same thing. And it's hard not to judge a person by how you were coming up. So it's always hard for me to do that asking. So that's something that I have to work on. And then also, and I don't know if it's just a Black thing, a cultural thing, but we always want to bargain. So it's almost like you have to put your price up just to get the price you actually want. And I don't like that. I want to state my price and let it be my price. So that's another hurdle trying to overcome as well. But I loved the whole thing was awesome. And it just let me know that there's a lot of work that I have to do with my own limited beliefs.
That's really good, Tracy. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that I can definitely agree with the bargaining comment. What I have found to be helpful is really understanding what value you bring, because it helps you to just stand in your costs. It is what it is, like, because you have to make money. And so bargaining, politely tell them this is not what we're doing. Like, this is what the cost is. And but I think that might be a cultural issue, because it just is what it is. But I do want to ask this: since you have used Cassandra's services before, why don't you give a quick testimonial from someone who's actually, had an opportunity to work with Cassandra?
Well, I first met her doing a master class in radical candor. And, there was radical candor is care personally, but challenge directly.
Interesting.
When she taught that course, and it opened up my eyes into, being human, but yet being firm.
Nice.
So out of that course, she offered another 4-week series on pretty much feedback, giving and receiving feedback. And I took that class to teach myself how to care personally, but challenge directly, and to have those direct conversations with a person that needs to be had for change. Yet at the same time, letting them know that I do care about you. And the reason why I'm giving you this feedback is because it's necessary. Right. And I want you to receive what I'm saying. So we did a lot of role playing with Bruce and some other actors, and I got stumped a lot because thinking on my feet right away is a little difficult. I actually need to marinate and analyze. Yeah. So having to respond on a moment's notice was very challenging. So I definitely have to work on that. But the class was awesome, and I encourage anyone to take it.
Thank you for sharing that, Tracy. That sounds really good. Those tough conversations are definitely not comfortable. And you can't find the words a lot of times because you're uncomfortable. So now you
Right.
just kind of like, so that's really good. Thank you for sharing, Tracy.
Mhm.
Next, Arjana, if you can please share some feedback, thoughts, comments that you took away from this masterclass.
So with me, it's a little different because I'm not selling anything. However, I'm asking. And so something that I took, I mean, when you said like about the 90%, I have to ask for donations. And so I guess I kind of looked at it like it is kind of like that barter on, I have to ask people would they like to support or donate. And so
Thank you, Frozen.
Oh no.
Oh, you're frozen, Arjana, if you can hear me. While you get unfrozen, Sadie, are you able to talk?
I think Saeed is still having
I mean, Saida, I'm sorry,
It's
Sadie.
okay. I
Saida.
think that she's having microphone
You're
troubles.
still having trouble? Okay.
So maybe not.
Arjana? Oh, let's see. Oh, okay. You're back, Archana. You were muted or you were frozen.
okay. So I
There
was
you
just
go.
saying everything that you said, I was just trying to reframe it to get back to how that would work in my world of just asking for donations. I mean, in my professional life, even as a food banker, I work with the philanthropy team sometimes and just how they operate and do things. And they kind of go back and they ask for the money and they go back again and ask for money. And so I'm just always like, oh God. And I've heard and people say like in a nonprofit world, you can't be scared to ask for that money to actually run your programs, run your operation. And so it's really, really good. I just had to take a lot of time just rethinking about a lot of things that you were saying as far as getting in the clients and anything that had to do with like making a sale. I was just looking at that as a donor, like trying
Yeah.
to get that donation.
Absolutely. And I think that realizing that my belief is that because this is so directly related to human connection and communication, relationship building, really we're selling all the time, whether it's transactional and getting money, right? And in your case, what I would say is that you are enrolling people in an idea and a mission and a vision. And so you have to get people a collective shift of consciousness to enroll in that vision or mission and purpose so that they're willing to support it. So you're selling an idea or a vision as opposed to selling a product or a service, right? And so I think I had a conversation with one of my clients recently about how much they really liked Mr. Rogers, but they were like, but Mr. Rogers, it wasn't a salesperson. I was like, but he was. He was every week getting on TV and enrolling people in a collective consciousness of what a world that he had imagined and was creating for us could be like if we lived like Mr. Rogers. And so I think that Mr. Rogers is one of the best salespeople
Yeah.
because he was able to get us on board with that mission, that vision, that purpose. And so I think that like realizing that it's not just about the transactional money, it's about selling is really about getting that shift in consciousness.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
that. Yeah, because I always feel like I'm not a salesperson. That's one of the things that I always say anyway. And so I really, my director told me one time, Marchana, how are you getting all these donations? People are, like you said, buying into the idea of, oh, we want to support Bag Lady Outreach. And that's how it's been so successful. You are essentially selling something. And like you just said, it's pretty much the idea for the mission. I'm selling just to come on along with me on this ride. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's really good, Archana. I'm glad you were able to apply it to, you are non for profit. And so you clearly understand. You applied it perfectly. So I think you got some good tools to continue to use. Well, I know we talked against tools in this.
No. Tools are great. We just have to know how to use them.
There we go. So now fine tuning some of the tools that you may have already had and then got some new tools for your tool bag. because donations are the blood of your, or of any nonprofit organization. So I'm glad it was helpful for you. I don't think we're going to be able to get Sadie, but she definitely has been talking in the chat and just talking about how awesome it was, how valuable the conversation was, and inspirational as well. So Cassandra, I don't think we have anything else to say, but thank you so much. Like, this was awesome. If you want to close out by saying any parting words or any call to actions, please feel free to do so.
Yeah, well, I just again want to thank people and honor the fact that they took time out of their Monday night to intentionally create space for them to learn and grow and spend time together. So thank you for the people who are here in the room with us, as well as the people who might be watching on the outside on YouTube or and Facebook. And just I invite you again to have conversations with me. I'm excited to help people, and I believe in helping people connect better, whether that again is in leadership or teamwork, communication, sales. And I invite you again. I think I put it in the chat, and then in the places that were not in the room with us, we'll make sure it ends up in the comments. I think.
Oh, I've already done that.
Oh,
So
you did
they'll
it.
see it. Yeah.
See, sign up for a time. That space is on my calendar for a reason. Let me see what I can do to be supportive of you, and if and help you get clarity on the types of support you might need. And if I'm a great fit to help you with that, fantastic. We can keep that going. And if not, I'll point you in the direction that I think you need to go. So thank you so much, Christina.
Awesome. You are so welcome. Okay, guys, that's it. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Tell your friends and other colleagues about these masterclasses. We do facilitate them every week with new content, new speakers. And so thank you so much again, Cassandra, for your valuable addition to the Wynners Club Masterclasses. And everybody have a great evening. I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Bye.